Hey everyone, and welcome to SkillCapped. I'm the King Live, and today my goal is to help you bring your Vandal aim to the next level. Out of both the rifles in Valorant, the Phantom is often considered the better of the two because of its ease of use. But the reality is that the Vandal is statistically actually the better rifle when it comes to engagements beyond 15 meters. Theoretically, if you could tame this beast, it would actually be the better of the two, and that's why I'm bringing you 5 pro Vandal tips to help you master the more difficult gun of the two, and give you an advantage over your enemies. Now, if you haven't seen it, we already have a Vandal tips video that I highly recommend that you check out if you're learning to master the gun. But in this video, my goal is to give you some more advanced tips, perhaps some things that you don't hear in every single Vandal guide that you see. I'm not just going to tell you to aim for the head and eat your vegetables. I don't want to waste your time with that, so stick with me and let's get into the video. But before we do, let's introduce our question of the day, which is, what is your favorite Vandal skin in Valorant? People have a lot of opinions on the skins in Valorant, so I'm interested to hear what you have to say. Anyway though, let's get into it with our very first tip, which is abuse small openings and off angles. I'm talking about some pretty specific angles here, and you can obviously abuse off angles with the Phantom as well. The guns are pretty similar in a lot of ways, so this will apply with most tips, but the whole point of this video is to min-max and to help you become the best player that you can be. And because of the one-hit headshot for the Vandal, you can really abuse some of these obnoxious angles and land the easiest kills you've ever seen. Specifically, the type of angles I think work the best take advantage of areas that enemies will commonly walk past by aiming through a small gap between two walls. Your main goal when finding angles like this should be to take advantage of how enemy players would normally clear angles and where they would be pre-aiming. For example, on this angle on Bind, enemies will normally start to pre-aim Cubby or Garden as they are approaching up long. Because of this, when they walk up against the back wall, they walk directly into your crosshair for a free headshot onto them. The best part about tight angles like this though is that even if you don't kill the target, it poses very little risk to yourself if you're fast, as you can just dip away and prepare for their push. Similar angles I love to use are over by Showers on Bind, playing on B site on Split, or basically anywhere that you can take a few pop shots at enemy players and safely fall back towards cover. Because of the one-hit headshot with the Vandal, you can take advantage of this sort of hit and run tactic to a larger extent, because if you're quick with your shots, it can be very difficult for players to punish. The best way to take advantage of this is to just get a good grasp on your mechanics such as crosshair placement and counter strafing, and then also have a good understanding of different off angles that you can play on the maps, and you can really rack up some free kills and rounds incredibly easily. And before we break down some other ways to get free kills, if you guys are serious about improving, I highly recommend that you check out all of the things we have to offer at skillcapped.com. We have up-to-date lineups, courses on how to climb with all agents, Smurf commentaries where a higher rank player walks you through how to carry in your rank, and so much more. Come join over 500,000 satisfied members, improve that KDA, and get the rank that you've always wanted at skillcapped.com. Link in the description below. Moving on to the second tip that a lot of players don't take advantage of enough though is pre-fires. Similarly to our last tip, this is taking advantage of the sort of hit and run tactic that the Vandal is so good at. There are some locations and times which you can really abuse pre-fires to rack up free kills, especially if you're playing in the lower ranks where players like to full push around corners. Many players like to look for early duels, but this leaves yourself open to being traded out early on, as if you're playing common angles, you can be pre-aimed very easily. So instead of hard holding these angles, what I suggest, especially when you're using a Vandal, is that you instead use a pre-fire and run tactic when looking for these early picks. By just throwing in a burst of bullets quickly at a common rush location, you give yourself a chance of landing an early kill onto the entry player, while also leaving yourself very difficult to punish. You can also do this aggressively from an offensive standpoint as well though, pre-firing common angles that your enemy players will hold. This works at any rank, but specifically in lower ranks, players like to hold these common angles and look for early engagements. You can take advantage of this by having good pre-aim and then pre-firing to better increase those odds of winning the engagement. You can get some ridiculously easy kills by using this tactic, and you can do it without ever actually even seeing your target. Similarly to the last tip though, this is very difficult to punish when you're quick enough with it, and that's exactly why you should do it. Valorant isn't always about which player has the best aim, and you don't even need to kill a player every single time that you get into an engagement with them. By just taking quick engagements that are difficult to punish, you may be able to land a few shots onto your target and apply some chip damage to them. For example, even if you do a quick burst and hit them in the body twice, that is 80 points of damage right out the gate. This is going to be incredibly annoying for me as a player, and I'm going to have to play differently because of this now. Speaking of playing differently though, this brings us to our third tip, which is going to be you need to stop crouching. Now don't get me wrong, if you're ever committing to a full spray, crouching is okay, but too many players crouch far too often. And with the Phantom, since it's a spray heavy weapon, you're going to crouch a little bit more, but with the Vandal, it's incredibly important that you stay mobile. You only have 25 bullets in a Vandal compared to the Phantom, and although the Vandal does have a higher damage per bullet beyond 15 meters, you're still going to want to make every shot count. This isn't even mentioning the wider spread on Vandal shots compared to the Phantom. When you crouch, you make yourself an incredibly easy target to hit, and it's just not worth it when using the Vandal, especially not when fighting multiple targets. Now there is a time and place to crouch. As we mentioned before, if you're committing to a full spray, crouching is not a bad idea. Or if you're intentionally crouching to throw off the enemy's crosshair placement, this is okay. However, especially at lower ranks, you're going to see a lot more benefit from focusing on making your shots count and learning how to strafe during combat, especially when fighting at longer ranges. Do me a favor and run around in a DM for a bit and tell me which targets are more difficult to fight. The ones who stand still and commit to a full spray every time they see you, or the ones who are actively throwing out a burst of fire and then quickly strafing to the side to avoid your fire. I get the sense that when guides mention that players should learn to counter strafe, they hear this a lot and they know it's a thing, but they don't really know when to use it. With a Vandal, it's very easy to explain when to counter strafe. You should be throwing out bursts of fire, and then in between you want to strafe away. While you are strafing, you're doing a few things. The first is you're avoiding the enemy fire, and this is probably the most important. If you've ever wondered why you're constantly getting one-tapped by enemies, this is probably why. You're making yourself too easy to hit. But the second thing that you're doing while strafing is you're giving your recoil a second to reset so that you can accurately finish off the enemy with your second burst. None of this is possible while crouching, and this is important to understand. When you crouch, you don't give yourself a safety net in case you miss. You're full committing to the fight at hand. When you choose to counter strafe instead, you're recognizing that, hey, I may still miss my shot, but I'm not going to make it easy for them to hit theirs. I said it in both tip number 1 and 2, the Vandal is a hit and run weapon. You're trying to hit the enemy with those deadly one-shot headshots. It takes one bullet to kill a target, no more. Stop crouching, focus on your mechanics, and your Vandal gameplay will improve a massive amount. Moving on to another Vandal technique that will prevent you from getting yourself killed though, and this is going to involve smokes. Basically, we all know that the Vandal has bullet tracers through smokes, whereas the Phantom has none. Meaning if you spray through a smoke, the enemies are going to know where the shots are coming from and fire back. Because of this, the common practice with the Vandal is to burst fire through the smoke instead, and then quickly dip away behind cover when they return fire. Now, although the Vandal does have bullet tracers, that doesn't mean it's actually bad for shooting through smokes. In fact, because of the one-hit headshot, it actually can be incredibly strong. With the Phantom, it may seem superior because it's harder to track where the shots are coming from, but with that comes the fact that even if you hit somebody in the head with the Phantom, they may not even die. This is why with the Vandal oftentimes, I'll find myself fishing for headshots through the smoke, making sure to pre-fire angles that players may be walking up on in the smoke. Your average player when spraying through a smoke might find themselves spraying at the center of a smoke, or maybe even spraying at the corner a player would approach from. However, you have to factor in how players will enter the smoke or prepare to execute out of them. When fishing for headshots, oftentimes what I will do is I'll fire 2 quick bursts at either side of the smoke and then do a quick burst through the center. This is because players rarely play in the center of a smoke, and most of the time when inside of a smoke, they will hug the edges of it to avoid any sort of fire. For example, this smoke on B long, how would you enter into it? Would you go in through the center? Probably not. Would you approach it directly from the corner of long? Probably not this way either. I'm expecting you probably move away from this corner to avoid getting sprayed and enter from an angle on the side of the left wall. This is why the edges of the smoke are excellent places to burst or tap fire into to fish for headshots. One last reason you shouldn't be spraying through smokes and you should only be tap firing or bursting is because, as we mentioned earlier, the Vandal only has 25 bullets. Which sounds like a lot, but when you're in a prolonged gunfight, every bullet counts. And I can tell you, if I hear you spray 20 bullets into a smoke, you can bet I'm going to push you when you go for a reload. Lower ranked players have a very bad habit of just wanting to spray through every smoke that they see, and I really urge you to be careful of when you decide to shoot through smokes. It may seem like it doesn't hurt you, but you can be severely punished for it because although it gives you a chance to pick up kills on targets, it also gives away information to the enemies, and as you start to climb the ranks, you'll begin to get punished for this more. This is especially present during post plants. You'll see a lot of players like to spam through smokes, but retaking sites is largely about information. And when you're spamming through those smokes constantly, you're giving away a lot of info and leaving yourself pretty exposed. If they time the retake for when you back up to reload, you're giving them a big opportunity to win the round, and since your ammo is a lot more limited with the Vandal, you're going to have to be a bit more careful for when you're choosing to shoot through smokes. Speaking of playing intelligently though, our fifth and final tip for the Vandal is you should be choosing how you play the round based on what your opponent's economy looks like. The Vandal's optimal range is any fight above 15 meters, meaning that you're not normally going to be wanting to take close range fights if you can avoid it. Within 15 meters, the Vandal is outclassed by the Phantom, but not only that, it can be outclassed by the Judge, Stinger, Bucky. You could even get right-clicked by a Classic within 15 meters. If the enemy team is on an eco, use your Vandal like a sniper rifle and challenge those longer angles. They should not be able to fight back with you. I think it was a quote from Abraham Lincoln that said, "The best Vandal players are not the ones with the best aim, but the ones who take the smartest engagements." This fight on mid-ascent when the enemy can only afford Spectres is a smart fight. Holding in this corner on catwalk when the enemy team can only afford Spectres is not a smart fight. Furthermore, remember what we've been saying this entire guide. Your strength with the Vandal is your one-hit headshot. It's not your sprays, it's not your ability to shoot while running. The strength of the Vandal is going to be able to kill your target quickly and then reposition for the next target. The closer you are to your targets, the easier it's going to be for them to trade you out, making it so you cannot use the Vandal to its full potential. Keep your space between enemies if you can, be patient, and hold your ground. You don't need to kill your targets with your first engagement. Throw in your burst fires and focus on landing your headshots, but not only that, focus on staying alive. One of the biggest problems with lower ranked players is they commit to fights they just don't have to take. By mastering this hit and run tactic that the Vandal allows you to do so effectively, you'll easily improve your mechanics and learn how to maximize your capabilities in the game. Lastly, remember, if you want to be the best player that you can be, improve that KDA, and get the rank that you've always wanted, be sure to check out SkillCapped.com. Link in the description below. In my honest opinion, the Vandal is far more satisfying to use than the Phantom once you get used to it. I mentioned our question of the day earlier, which was, what do you think is the best Vandal skin in the game? And honestly, I have to go with the Reaver. That gun practically gives me aimbot when I use it. I don't know what Riot did to make it feel so good, but it just feels incredibly clean. Anyway though, that's going to do it for this guide. If you guys enjoyed it, do me a favor and show your support by dropping a like and subscribing down below. It really does help us out. As always, I'm the King Live, and we here at SkillCapped want to thank you all for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.